Welcome to another episode of The Good Listening To Show, your life and times with me, Chris Grimes, the storytelling show that features The Clearing, where all good questions come to get asked and all good stories come to be told. And where all my guests have two things in common. They're all creative individuals and all with an interesting story to tell. There are some lovely storytelling metaphors, a clearing, a tree, a juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, some alchemy, some gold, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, and a cake. So it's all to play for. So yes, welcome to The Good Listening To Show, your life and times with me, Chris Grimes. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin. There we are. How terribly exciting. Welcome to The Clearing, ghostwriter and a man with an outrageously eclectic CV, as he says on his own Twitter feed. This is the lovely Mr. James Hogg. And whilst I've been researching you, I found myself saying Mr. James Hogg, which has got nothing to do with where you're from. I've just enjoyed saying Mr. James Hogg. But you're a ghostwriter extraordinaire. You're a biographer, a ghostwriter and collaborator specialising in sport and entertainment. We'll get on to the books that you have written and the ones that you're currently working on. But I first came across your Twitter feed, and I absolutely love the fact that it's sort of nom material that really appeals to my own sense of humour. Yeah. Just today, you've uploaded the wonderful sequence from Blackadder where he's taking the mickey out of two actors saying the words Macbeth repeatedly. Yeah, always good to tease actors. Also, there was a lovely Bowie montage you've been doing recently. Les Dawson, Peter Sellers, Bernard Cribbins. It's just accidental. I don't think about it. I literally go on YouTube. YouTube knows what I like because of what I search. I'll find something that I like that's under 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I'll download it. It literally takes me a minute, and I'll put it on there, and it's like catnip for some people, which is fantastic. Yes, which is great. But I don't think about it ever. The Bowie thing's just gone completely mad. And I'm a Yorkshireman, and the fact that he was talking about, Bowie talks Yorkshire, yeah, why not? And yes, just completely bonkers. So, but people like it. Why not? And this is about stories of distinction and genius. Your story, according to the Twitter feed, became distinctive and ingenious. And then when I looked out for the story behind the story being you, I realised that you've done some wonderful comic biographies. You are the author of Little Ern, the official biography. Co-author, yeah. Co-author. Yeah. And by the way, I saw live on stage the first performance that Ernie Wise did straight after Eric Morecambe had died in London. And I was so high up in the gods in sort of cheap seats, but we had the extraordinary viewpoint of my friend Gerard and I, who I was at the Central School of Speech and Drama with. We looked down and we could see behind the staircase that he was about to come up and down. And we saw Ernie Wise pacing up and down with all the pain that must have been going through the moment when he was about to walk on stage. Independently of Eric Morecambe. So that really appealed. And then you've written a book that was called Absolute Pandemonium about Brian Blessed. That was Brian. Yeah, I just that was one. Brian had written a volume of autobiography, which sort of took us up to the age of 18. And I read it, and it was great, but it didn't sound like him. And I wanted Brian Blessed. So Brian can write very nice. You can write. He's very poetic. He can write. But getting his personality that everybody knows onto a page, I didn't think was happening. So I said, let me help you get the Brian Blessed that everybody knows and loves onto the page. And so we came up with Absolute Pandemonium. And yeah, we had 2 books out of that. It was the best fun you can have with your clothes on. And it was suitably bombastic. And in fact, I saw him live about 3 months ago, actually, at the Tobacco Factory here in Bristol. And he is, absolutely one of a kind. And, talking of Blackadder, coming full circle, I know that he was in that too. He's always to be relied upon to be larger than life and beautifully bombastic. Yeah, he's very. I don't think I've ever met anybody as idiosyncratic as Brian Blessed, but he's the most kind, generous, loving person I think I've ever met. He really is. He'd do anything for anybody. There's nobody else in the world like like Brian Blessed. I did. My son did a biography on him when we were writing. He did like a school project. He had to write about somebody famous, and he did Brian. And I told Brian, and he insisted on doing a video message for Henry. And I said he's 11, so say, Brian, don't swear. And he was like, don't worry, love, don't worry. Don't worry. And we got right to the end, and I thought, brilliant. Got right to the end. He said, okay, Henry, don't let that grind you down. We got within a hair's breadth. But I put that on his birthday. I put that on Twitter just because it's a nice thing. It's quite sort of, uplifting. And it just went bonkers. He's like catnip. Everybody loves Brian Blessed. If you don't love Blessed, you're made of wood, I think.
I, by the way, it's a lovely expression. He's like catnip. That's a great quote for somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had that as something that should be written as a review. I gather you're also working on a Timothy West biopic as we speak.
I'm working with Tim. I came up with an idea while I was gardening. Believe it, I hate gardening. I don't do a lot of it. So I was sort of thinking of other things to do while I was gardening, and I just came up with the idea. I don't know why, but I knew that it was Tim and Prue's 60th wedding anniversary this year. I came up with the idea last year, so I got in touch with Sam West. I know a little tiny bit, and I just said, do you think your dad? And I had interviewed them for my Richard Bryars biography, and I said, do you think he'd be up for doing a sort of a memoir? Deeply personal memoir, starting on the day he met Prue and finishing, on her 90th birthday, which was last June. And I went to see him, and he was well up for it. And he's written before, but he's doing lots of other things. And sometimes people, because they're busy or whatever, they need a conduit. They need somebody to help, which is why it's not a ghost. Like Brian's book, I wasn't ghosting it. I was collaborating. I was helping.
Yes.
And that's what I'm doing with Tim. So we've nearly finished the first draft. And I've been for the past few months, every other week, going down and staying with Tim and Prue for a few days, working, coming back, doing a bit more, and this sort of to and fro thing. And it's, even though I do say so myself, this one's a really special book because how many unions last 60 years? So,
And I couldn't help hearing the word union there. They've done the Union Canal. They've done lots of stuff with canals as well.
They certainly have. They certainly have. They're great fun. So, and I've also just finished a little while ago a book. I like doing motorsport books, and I've done one with a guy called Gunter Steiner, who runs the Haas Formula One team. I came up with an idea to do a diary of a season. A team principal of an F1 team has never done a diary of a season before, the off season, the whole thing. And I approached him. I did Johnny Herbert's book. Johnny knew him, so Wheels Within Wheels, and I got in touch, and he said, yeah, why not? So I've been basically sort of following him around for the past year, going to lots of Grand Prix and having lots of chats. I think we did 53 interviews in all or something like that. And that comes out next month. So, as I said, and before that I did Paul Oakenfold, the DJ. So, as I said, fairly eclectic.
And I don't know what your title is for the Formula One book. Presumably it's not called Get Your Nuts Off at Lightning Speed.
No, it's called, it's a play on, I discovered Gunter through Drive to Survive, which is a big Netflix show. So it's called Surviving to Drive. My idea, and I'm expecting a lawyer's letter from Netflix any day.
And don't go with my title. You'll get lots of lawyers' letters if you go for Getting Your Nuts Off.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed.
And by the way, Timothy West and Prunella Scales gave one of my most memorable independent lectures whilst I was training as an actor at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. They came in and did a one workshop quick hit, which they'd done for previous academic years in the times of someone very seminal, Nat Brenner and Rudy Shelley, ancient sort of...
Rudy Shelley, I've heard of, yeah.
And it was a really, really powerful, what to stress in Shakespeare, because actors, when you start out, are so worried that everything's important because it's Shakespeare, but they make it really clear in a oneer what to stress by looking for self-colouring words, which frees you up to stress others. So it was just a really brilliant workshop. Yeah. I think Prue in particular used to take, or takes, teaching very, very seriously. Yes.
It's the whole thing of giving back, because neither of them Tim didn't go to drama school. Prue did.
Yes.
But and I think it's something that they take very, very seriously, and yes. I think they're very good at it as well. So yeah.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
it is my great pleasure to welcome you to The Clearing. So we're going to get you on the open road, and I'm particularly thrilled because of your love and enjoyment of all things comic and, you know, the world in which you're operating. It's going to be lovely to curate you through this storytelling podcast. So it'll be a clearing, a tree, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, and a cake, as per usual. And as I've mentioned, it's stories of distinction and genius, and you qualify for both of those. So let's... Oh, by the way, I just wanted to mention as well, I love the bit about the fact that you left Headingley. You started your writing career whilst working for Yorkshire County Cricket Club. And when you left in 2012, the club began to flourish on and off the pitch.
Yeah, and then it didn't. That was before it became a den of, you know, sort of racist iniquity. But enough about that. But they I think literally they won the championship the year I left. So,
and you had many failed attempts during your time at Yorkshire, trying to secure sponsorship and smoking a lot with Brian Close. It was
I used to smoke. Brian Close is my favourite ever human being. I think who played. I think he played football for Leeds, Arsenal, Bradford City. Captained England at cricket. Captained Yorkshire for about 100 years. The world's greatest human being. And I think he smoked 100 cigarettes a day from the age of 4 or something like that.
Well, I've just realised I misread that, and both are good. I read it as Clough, not Close, but it's Brian Close. You're quite right.
Yeah, I don't think Cloughie was a big smoker, but Brian Close, yeah. So he used to come in every day, and I was the commercial manager, well, masquerading as. And basically, he used to come in, "You're right, Hoggy, fancy a fag?" And we used to go out.
Hoggy.
We used to drink tea and eat tonics, tea cakes, and smoke cigarettes and sort of chat about stuff. Horse racing and things.
Tonics tea cakes. You can't go. I had a Tonics caramel wafer just last night.
Living life right. You see.
Exactly. Yes. So I was going to say something else about Yorkshire, but it's completely gone out of my head. Oh yes, connection to Leeds United. You don't have. I'm after heroes of mine as well. Alan Clark was the first footballer I ever thought, wow, what an awesome sniffer Clark. You don't happen to know him, do you?
I don't know. I support Middlesbrough, actually. So I live in Leeds and have done for a very long time, but I support the borough. Obviously, I'm a glorious...
I wear the borough.
I wear the borough, up the borough, yeah.
My granddad, Norman, not Stanley Fletcher, but Norman Coverdale supported Middlesbrough all of his life.
I was born in Coverdale, so there you go. Yeah.
Wow. We're just... pinballing coincidences and I love this. So let's get you on the open road. Sorry for I nearly got going and then I prevaricated. So James Hogg, ghostwriter extraordinaire, with your outrageously eclectic CV. I thank you for that. What is a clearing for you? Where do you go in your mindscape to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think?
I have two, I'm afraid. I have to have two because I do a lot. I travel probably between 15 and 20 weeks. I'm out of the country a year. And when I'm at home, Roundhay Park, which I absolutely do. I've been very lucky enough to live very close to Roundhay Park for the past 24, 25 years. And I absolutely adore it. And it's wonderful. And my family's here. You know, I'm close to home, close to my friends, etc. But when I'm abroad... Sorry, carry on.
Roundhay Park, did you say?
Roundhay Park. It's a big park in Leeds. I think it's one of the biggest urban parks in the country, if not the biggest, and it's stunning. 2 lakes. It's beautiful, and it's my happy place when I'm here. It's the reason I live in Roundhay. If it's the thing that differentiates it from other places. So it's why I like living here. And I was thinking I must have come up with the idea for at least 10 books because I've never been really a ghost for hire or a collaborator. I'll come up with an idea, approach whoever it is, Cribbins, Blessed, Tim West, whoever, Gunter Steiner. And so it's my idea. So I'll come up with the idea. I devise an idea and say, let's do this. And I've come up with at least 10 while wandering around Roundhay Park, So it's quite a creatively rich place, and it's beautiful. So maybe the two are linked. I'm not sure. Yeah.
And what a great expression! Never a ghost for hire. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose everybody has a price. If somebody came to me and said, here's a brown envelope, mate, will you write my book? Of course I will. But I feel more invested if I come up with the idea. I'm there right from the beginning. Of course, I'm not just sort of So you get. Yeah, you're more invested in every way, and it's the way I prefer to do things. Not everybody says yes, of course, yes. Absolutely not. But it's worth a punt. And the other one is Ipanema. I go to Brazil a lot. I do a lot of writing in Brazil, and it's Ipanema. I absolutely adore Ipanema. It's my favourite beach. So again, I've quite a few books. I've been lying there, trying not to look too, sort of like chubby white bald guy, trying not to look too conspicuous. And it's a sort of Brazilian version of Roundhay Park for me.
James Hogg, the girl from Ipanema. We like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely. So we have a choice then. The choice is yours. Where shall we be? At Roundhay Park or on Ipanema Beach, please?
Well, I'm in Roundhay, and I had a lovely walk this morning. So let's stay in Roundhay. Let's stay in Roundhay Park. Yeah.
Do you know, I'm secretly happy you said that. That's great.
Yeah.
So presumably there are many majestic trees in any case there, but I'm now going to arrive with my own existential tree, a bit waiting for Godot-esque and a bit Beckettian. Thank you very much. And I'm going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. How'd you like them apples? And it's your preparation now, thank you, James, to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've had 5 minutes to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention. That's where the squirrels will come in. And a quirky or unusual fact. So over to you to interpret the shaking of your canapé as you see fit.
The 4 things that shaped me. When I was 17, I grew up in North Yorkshire, Coverdale, Wensleydale, farming, not a lot going on, rubbish school, because everybody was going to work on a farm, nobody cared. So, and I was always a little bit theatrical, a little bit different, was not a son of a farmer, really, and I couldn't wait to get out. So when I was 17, literally a couple of days after I was 17, in 1989, I leapt on a National Express coach and I went to London, borrowed 30 quid off my dad. I think I'd been once when I was about 6 for a couple of days or something like that, and took a chance and managed to get somewhere to stay. And I think I stayed with an aunt for a few. Yeah, I did. I stayed with an aunt for a few days, and I went to Soho, Wardle Street Job Centre, my first day. Had a quick look around Soho, though, first, as you know, as is my wont. And ended up there, and I got offered 2 jobs, one at the Cumberland Hotel as a bellboy with the hat, etc., and one at Lillian Skinner as a children's shoe salesman. And at the time, I hated kids. So I thought, well, it's got to be rich tourists. And basically, I went from there. London can be the greatest place on God's earth, as everybody knows, but it can also be the most lonely place if you don't know anybody and you're on your Jack Jones. And the first few years were difficult because I was paying loads in rent. I didn't earn much money, but it was so I would never regret a moment, because it was basically what got me out of Yorkshire. I know I'm back in Yorkshire, but it shut me out, and I had to stand on my own 2 feet. I was very, very green, made a lot of mistakes. But it definitely, that was the first thing. That was the first thing I ever did, really.
And I love the fact that so you became the bellboy for the Cumberland Hotel. That's what you did.
Yeah. I'm quite shrewd. I'm quite good commercially. I know, if I need some money, I'll know where to look. So I managed to latch onto these guys who used to work in the Gulf, and they used to come over, spend 3 months in the Gulf, 3 months holed up at the Cumberland, drinking Canadian Club and ordering prostitutes and things like that. And I knew that they needed somebody to go and get their money for them, get this, that, and the other, get bottles of whiskey. And so I became their lackey, if you like. Yeah. So I used to earn 77 quid a week and pay about £56 in rent. And they used to give me like 100, 150 pounds a week. So I was earning 2-3 times as much as anybody just by hanging around the right people, etc. So
also, what I love is, in my love of Laurel and Hardy and Oliver Hardy, did you know that he grew up in his parents' Texas hotel? And so by being in a hotel environment, that became his acute people observer mode. So it must have been that you were able to really observe rich Soho-based life, and formed your career.
Potentially, yeah. I've always been able to. I always know where the money is. I'm not overtly materialistic, but I have I've always had a fear of being skint. So that drives me to. I know you look after my family, etc., etc. And I always like getting a deal. That's another reason why I like being a ghostwriter. I'll come up with an idea, if somebody says, yes, let's give it a go, I'll write a proposal. And if we get a really good publishing deal, that's the bit I really, really enjoy.
Yes.
It's getting the deal across the line. And that's where it all started. And then the other one is, so moving to London, I met a guy called William Ingray, who's still my oldest and dearest friend. And I go to Gran Canaria to his place to do a lot of writing. And he was my first boss in theatre. So I went to see Run for Your Wife at the Whitehall Theatre because I needed to earn more money. And I went to there, found the bloke with the dicky bow tie, said, can you take me on? I need a job. And he gave me a job selling ice cream. So I was doing seven while 6 at the hotel, 7 while 11 at the theatre. And then I was walking back to Kennington because I was getting paid so much. But you could do it when you're 17, 18, 19 years old. And I got I kept saying, I need a job full-time in theatre. I want to work in a box office. And they said, there's a guy at Wyndham's. He needs somebody, William Ingray. And he was like a legend in sort of theatrical circles, one of the best-known managers. And I went to see him. And I had a very broad Yorkshire accent. And I was called Jim. People used to call me Jim in those days. And I was like, no. Then he was like, oh, my God, look at you. And he said, oh, go on, then I'll give you a try. And as I was leaving, he just said, by the way, it's not Jim, it's James. And he said, and the accent will have to go. And then he set about, he sort of became my surrogate father and taught me about music and about theatre and about life and about everything, really. And yeah, he's probably the most important person in my formative years. So moving to London, meeting William, hugely important. And
just say his name one more time, William
Ingray. William Ingray, Ingrey. And he was at Wyndham's for probably 30, 40 years.
Yes.
Yes, I think the late 70s he was there. And then he went to St Martin's, got bored of that, working on the Mousetrap forever. And then, retired about 8 years ago to Gran Canaria. He's got a beautiful place out there.
Oh, he's still with us?
Oh, yeah. I was out there last week until Thursday. He lives out there. His other half, Maro, who lives in London, but sort of, goes over there. But William will not leave Gran Canaria. After spending 40 years in the centre of London, that's it. He will not go back.
And he appreciates, I'm assuming, that he gave you your first punt in life, really. And
yeah, I mean, we've known each other 35 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he's still my oldest friend. He's the best man at my wedding. He kind of means he's been there for the whole trip, if you know what I mean.
Whole hog. See what I did there?
The whole hog. Yeah, absolutely. So next thing, deciding to go it alone. So I was an employee, like I suppose the majority of people, until I left Yorkshire. I got sacked from Yorkshire Cricket Club. I hated it. I was in sales. I did sales because I was quite good, but I absolutely loathed it. And I was a little bit unruly, and I think I was subconsciously trying to get myself sacked. And I think I put something quite disparaging. Yorkshire were once playing the Dutch in the one day game, and Martin Moxon and Craig White were the two coaches. And basically the Dutch were part-timers. This is an example of how I tried to get myself sacked. And they got done. They got beaten by the Dutch. So I sent Martin and Craig a text message. I can remember sending it, and I said, hey boys, I thought the Dutch were only good at darts and porn. Martin Moxon went absolutely off his box, and we almost had a sort of stand-up fight, etc. But I thought it was very, very funny. Craig White thought it was hilarious, and it was kind of that. And then eventually the chairman, Colin Graves, got me in. He just said, look, I'm going to give you this. There's a bit of money. Just go. And then I was like, fair enough. So I went. I was my own worst enemy. And I went to work for a friend of mine, my best mate, sort of over here, Mark, who owns a big sort of pet food ingredients company. I did a bit of work for him, and he said in the end, mate, you love writing, because I'd written the James Robinson Justice book and the Early Wise book while I was at Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And while I was working for Mark, I started writing the Kenny Everett authorised biography with Robert Sellers. And in the end, I wrote that came out, and he just said, mate, you're okay, you're good at this, but your heart's not in it. Go. He said it again, like Yorkshire. He said, I'm going to give you 3 months' money or whatever. Just go. He said, but go and try it. Become self-employed. So I did, and I got in touch with Torval and Dean. I found out that Dancing on Ice was coming to an end. I'd never ghosted before. I've only co-written 3 books. And I said, let's do an autobiography. They'd done one right at the start of the 80s. And I said, let's do an autobiography. God knows how I did it, but I managed to talk them into doing it. Got Simon and Schuster as the publishers, and got myself an agent, Tim Bates at Peters Fraser Dunlop, and and I spent 3 weeks in Cyprus, basically trying to write 90 or 100,000 words. Pretending to be Jane Torval and Christopher Dean. He was in Colorado, she was in Kent, so I was Zooming them at different times. Talk about a baptism of fire. How the hell I managed to write that book in 3 weeks?
What a lovely, my life on ice, but a baptism of fire. I like that.
Absolutely, and all the ice melted, and that was fantastic. That really, really was fantastic. That was great. Although it was difficult,
I love your recurring theme of people paying you money to piss off and go.
Piss off, and that's what happens now. Tim West. There you go, James. We've helped. Right then, here's the rest of your money. Now piss off. It's a recurring thing. No, he wouldn't do that. But and I suppose my last one, and this is a bit obvious, but becoming a dad, because all the stuff I've told you is all about is all professional stuff, etc., etc. But becoming a dad's a real leveler. It really is. If your head is a little bit up your backside, which I think it can be after spending however long on your own, looking after yourself, etc., looking after other people, having dependents, I think is not a bad thing. So that's probably, those are the four things, or four of the things that have really shaped me.
And how many children do you have? Is it just the one?
Two that I know of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm joking. Yeah, I've got two boys. Henry, who's 17, nearly 18, and Louis, who is 14. So, yeah, Henry and Louis, bad kings. Yeah.
Bad kings, did you say?
Yeah, bad kings, Henry and Louis, you see.
Sorry, I was just about to mention your WhatsApp photograph makes sense now, because there are two boys in your WhatsApp photograph. And that's the boys right there. Yeah. The two bad kings, is that why you named them?
No, actually, yeah, probably. No. They just seemed like, we thought Henry Hogg, he could be anything. He can be a bookmaker, he can be a lawyer, but anything with a name like that. And Louis was the only one that we both liked. Louie. I'd suggest one. My wife would say, no, don't like it. And it got to a point where we were kind of like, well, she'll suggest one, so I'm definitely not going to like that, and etc. And then one day I think I just said, how about Louis? And I think we were both so flipping fed up with it. Yeah, all right, let's go with that.
There was a comic meme in a Facebook group I run called #LOLvirus to add a bit of happiness, and a meme came in where someone was testing, name me 15 kings of France, and they went, Louis, which is setting the bar low. Anyway, moving on. So we're on to three. Thank you for that so far. We're on to now the three things that inspire you. And if there's any overlap, don't worry about that.
Yeah, opportunity to travel. I'm completely nomadic. I think it's because I wanted to get out of Yorkshire so quickly. And since then, I've always, I just kept moving. I'm always moving. I can... It's not a joke. I can spend usually about 3 weeks at home before I start getting itchy feet. And my wife will say, you need to go away. So I need to get on a plane and go somewhere. So that inspires me. An opportunity that'll inspire me to come up with a book. One of the reasons I got in touch with Johnny Herbert, Gunter Steiner, was because I like the idea of writing a book or helping to write a book about Formula One or about a protagonist therein. But also it gives me an opportunity to travel. Anything that gives me an opportunity to travel inspires me.
And what happened during the pandemic, by the way? Were you stuck at home, sort of going a bit?
I did. I broke the law in the sense because if somebody tells me to, if somebody says you can't go out, like Boris Johnson said, sorry, you need to stay. Then there's a part of me, probably the same part that sent Martin Mox and Craig Wright the text, of thinking, nah, sod you, I'm not going to. No way. And so obviously I couldn't go abroad, but there's nothing I can do. I don't worry about things I can't. I can't do anything about. But I just made sure that I got out, and I stretched my legs as often as I could, and I got out of the home environment as often as I possibly could. But
so presumably back to the park where you can walk around a lot.
Absolutely, I spent God knows how much time in Roundhay Park. I know every inch of that park, back to front, and it's probably one of the reasons. Another reason why it's so that period during lockdown, those times were precious.
Yes.
So I associate with Roundhay Park with not just sort of like being inspirational and beautiful, aesthetically beautiful, but when you didn't, the opportunities to get out were few and far between. And going there, it was wonderful. I associate it with something very positive.
It's so lovely that is therefore your serious happy place. That makes complete sense. Here we are in your Roundhay clearing.
Inspiring people who are prepared to go out of their comfort zones. And I think more than ever these days, I could be wrong, but we're all driven to down conventional routes, go to university, become this, become that, etc., etc. And I don't think we're encouraged enough. People are encouraged enough, young people, to actually think, well, no, actually, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to university and then become a doctor or become this, that, the other. Actually, I'm going to plough my own furrow a bit. So I suppose people like Blessed inspired me hugely because, the whole going up Everest, God knows how many times.
Yes.
Becoming the oldest person to attempt to climb Everest without using oxygen, doing recreating the Maori and Irving thing, yes, where he did, with a trilby hat, putties, a velvet jacket, going up, really. But he doesn't there is no convention whatsoever in his life. The fact that he lives in a house and drives a car, that's about it. Yes. He does anything he wants to. Yes. And I've always done that. And sometimes it's the most uncomfortable thing in the world. It really is. When I decide that I'll go and write a book in Brazil or somewhere different, I wrote Brian's book in Brazil. I'm going somewhere where anything can go wrong. Anything can happen. But putting myself, there's a sort of like a kind of a visceral sort of, God, anything, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
And how did you stumble upon Brazil, by the way, as being your place to go and write? How did it?
Got a friend who works out there who we went to visit. It's 25, 30 years ago, something like that. And I first got together with my wife, and he's just, he speaks good English, and he's a bit of an Anglophile as well. Paolo is called. He's a lecturer at the university there. And so he's been over to visit us once, but I go over there, I think it must have been about 15, 16 times or something like that. And he lives in a place called Gavea, which is beautiful. People who, like Timothy West, I was talking to him. The reason he became an actor really was because it would give him an opportunity to travel. So he basically became an actor because he wanted to travel, not because he was he was sitting there just reading Shakespeare, being in love with it all. Yeah, okay, he's an actor's actor. He's in love with being an actor, and he's in love with what he does for a living. But it's a means to an end. So he's putting himself, and again, he'll go anywhere because he loves to travel. He doesn't necessarily feel safe. Doesn't necessarily, but he wants adventure. I think that's what I'm trying to say. People who yearn for adventure, they really, really inspire me. But that doesn't necessarily mean going on a plane, going to, Timbuktu or whatever. It can mean anything. But people who take themselves out of their comfort zone. So it can be, it can be somebody who doesn't like going out of the house, sort of going into town for the first time. But I admire that. I really, really do. That inspires me.
Lovely.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And now, two things that never fail to grab your attention. This is borrowed from the film Up. This is the Monsters of Distraction, or Squirrels. What never fails to grab your attention.
We've got one more.
Oh, apologies.
Yes,
sorry, you do the math.
The other one is money, which I'm coming. Which I said, and the reason I'm inspired by money is because I have this, as I said, this fear of being skint. And wanting to provide for my family, which is sort of, takes me over. So it's not because I am materialistically minded. For God's sake, look, I'm wearing I drive a 10-year-old Ford Focus, and I'm wearing a shitty Tesco fleece. I'm not, things don't matter, but being able to provide for my family and not being skint.
And what's driven that? Is there a sort of
being self-employed? I think as soon as I became self-employed and then had kids, and I think anybody who does listen to this, who is self-employed, most self-employed people I know suffer from exactly the same thing. this sort of intrinsic fear of being skint.
And I call it my freelancer's twitch. That's completely relatable.
Yeah. So that does inspire me, because it inspires me to come up with new ideas, because I want to provide for my family. I don't want to be skint, so I have to, I want to travel, etc., etc.
So there wasn't a sort of backstory of family destitution.
We hadn't got a pot to what in, but that's we didn't want for anything either. But not an issue there. No, it is just the freedom that travel. That if I don't earn money, I can't jump on a plane and go wherever I like. I can't go and write a book in Brazil or France or Gran Canaria or whatever. So I need to do that. Yeah, it inspires.
Gives you choices as well. Gives you choices.
Absolutely. So so the two things that grab my attention: good drummers. Really good drummers. I'm a drummer. I like to drum. I used to be in a band, a Led Zeppelin tribute band years ago, called Boot Led Zeppelin, which I started. And do you remember? Was it called Loot magazine? It was like classified. I put an advert in there, and we were originally going to do a band called. It was going to be early Queen and Zeppelin. We were going to call it Fred Zeppelin, but we couldn't find a singer who could do Robert Plant and Freddie Mercury, which is just that's come on. It's impossible, and so we went for Zeppelin in the end. And our first gig, which was at the Half Moon or somewhere like that in Chelsea, I think. I'm not sure it's there anymore. And they misspelt it. We were called Bottled Zeppelin, so it was a boot-led Led Zeppelin. And so it was and they'd taken out the dash, so we were Bottled Zeppelin. But good drummers, I go on YouTube, and there's a guy called Thomas Lang, who's an Austrian guy. It's like an octopus, things like that. I love, if I see a good drummer or hear a good drummer, that my ears are straight up.
By the way, I did send you a comic meme of Les Zeppelin, which
you did. I saw that. Les,
transposed onto Robert Plant.
Les Zeppelin. And this was one I had to think longest and hardest about, because I'm usually my attention is usually peaked. I'm usually antenna. I'm always looking for the next big thing, or looking for the next book or whatever. But things that really, so good drummers, but also I collect two cartoonists, a guy called Phil May, who was an ink, used to do ink drawings, turn of the last century, and a guy called Fred May, not related, who was the cartoonist in The Tatler for about 50, 60 years. I got to know his son, and I collect their works. And if, I'm on saleroom.com or eBay, and whenever I get a notification that one of their works are for sale, nobody else collects them, it's only me.
A collector of one.
I'm like, ping, and I'm like, God, and it's sort of, that's me done for the day until I get that. Until I know it's mine, then nothing else matters, which sounds really bizarre. So, good drummers and cartoons by dead people.
Lovely. And by the way, talking of dead people, did you know that the original James Hogg, you're in good company, was a Scottish poet and novelist and essayist who wrote in both Scottish and English? Did you know that?
I'm coming on to that. It's my quirky fact.
Ooh,
the fact that I'm related to... No, it's okay. So I'm related to Phil Drabble, as was, from One Man and His Dog, on my mother's side. He was my grandfather's first cousin. They hated each other. And on my other side, my father's side, I'm related to the only two other James Hoggs that people might have heard of. The Ettrick Shepherd, who you've just mentioned there, who wrote the, Thing of a Justified Sinner, which is a very dark novel. I think it's just been dramatised on Radio 4, actually.
Okay. I know that he wrote, what do I know, but he wrote Three Perils of Man, and then he equalised with Three Perils of Women. So he obviously has a bit of a...
the Ettrick Shepherd. Yes, we're Ettrick in Scotland. So I'm related to him and the other James Hogg, who was on Nationwide. He was the first guy. He was the reporter on Nationwide for donkey's years, and he's a cousin of mine. I haven't seen him for a few years, but he's great. But he was the first one who got left on somewhere in the Hebrides. So you remember that program that Ben Fogle did?
Yes.
This was sort of 30 years before that. He was the pioneer of all that sort of like, let's leave somebody on an island for a few weeks and see how they get on. But so there you go. I'm related to Phil Drabble and two James Hoggs. Wow.
And the Ettrick Shepherd wrote a biog, which I thought, well, you really are in good company with your namesake, because he wrote a biog of his friend Sir Walter Scott, I think you'll find.
Yes, I think he was a friend of Robbie Burns as well. Yeah, it's not bizarre because I was listening to something on Radio 4 the other day. Or was it Radio 3? Anyway, they've just done a new dramatisation of his most famous novel, Thingy of a Justified Sinner or something like that. Yeah.
And talking of Ben Fogle, I had an epiphany. I must ask him someday as well. You don't happen to know Ben Fogle, do you, as well?
I don't. I sat on a plane with him once, but no, I don't know him. No. I'm sure he's very nice.
I'm sure he's very nice too. Your vibe attracts your tribe and all that stuff. So brilliant. We've shaken your tree. Hurrah. So now we're going to stay in the clearing and we're going to move away from the tree. And next we talk about alchemy and gold, James Hogg. When you're at purpose and in flow, what are you absolutely happiest doing?
God, again, this is lying on a beach in Brazil, Leblon or Ipanema on my own, watching the sea, or watching darts. I love darts. I absolutely love darts. There's been some seniors darts tournament on Channel 5 or whatever this weekend, and I've had a few. My wife's been away, so I've had a few hours on my own. I love watching darts. I love so many things. So this has been really, really, I love life. I really, really do. So this has been very, very hard. I love it on Twitter. If somebody sort of sends me a thing, say that's really made my morning. That's why I only deal in comedy and funny things.
Yes,
politics, all the rubbish. Where everybody's always fighting on Twitter. I used to hate Twitter. I used to despise it, and I still do actually. But I like my own little corner of Twitter.
I like your little corner too.
Yeah. Well, with people I retweet, like the woman who has all the Ladybird book collection. She's fantastic. Always written A.A. Milne. There's a nice little corner of Twitter. I like that. So when somebody gets in touch and says, "Oh, that made me laugh. That made my morning," all I've done is retweet somebody else's work, for God's sake. But if it's made somebody's morning, again, that's something I absolutely love. That makes me very happy.
And by the way, with that in mind, you might really enjoy the other Facebook group, therefore, that I run, which is called #LOLvirus. Spread a little happiness and antivirus. It got going during the beginning of the pandemic. It's just to do exactly that. It's just to upload happiness on the daily, and why not?
Yeah, good. Absolutely. Why not? And so I'll go for lying on a beach and watching darts on my own.
180. I'll be happy to say. Thank you. So now I'm going to award you with a cake, Mr. James Hogg. So this is where you get to put a cherry on the cake as the final rich storytelling metaphor. So this is stuff like a favourite inspirational quote that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future. What notes, help or advice might you proffer to a younger version of yourself? What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And then we're going to ramp up to a bit of Shakespeare via something else in a moment. But over to you to put the cherry on your cake, please.
I think the best quote, and it's not a famous quote at all. It's just something that somebody said to me that my literary agent Tim Bates, I think it was at the time of the Kenny Everett book, and because there was my name on it, it's one of the few. I was doing all the interviews and this, that, and the other, and I think I must have been getting a bit too big for my boots. Which I think when you can, anybody can, and he just pulled me to one side and he said, "Oi, it's only a book." And that really resonated. And I thought, you are absolutely right. I love what I do, don't get me wrong, but it's a job of work. It's like Timothy West, acting, travel. Me, writing, money, travel. It's a job of work, one that I'm fairly good at, I think, and I really, really enjoy. But it's only a book.
Yes.
There you go.
It's lovely.
Yeah, perspective. That's really, and I'm always quoting that to myself.
And I love that at the epicenter and the heart of what you do. You are a writer, but it's only a book. Is wonderful. Keep your own perspective.
Nobody dies. Nobody really cares. Somebody's going to read the book. They'll like it or they won't. They're going to put it down. They're going to go and do something else. And that's the same if it's, Bernard Cribbin's autobiography. I don't know, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Whatsits or whatever. I think it's only a book.
That's your next idea, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Cheesy Whatsits.
Cheesy Whatsits. I suppose it might be if I was a fiction, or if I was an author who'd spent 3 years sort of slaving, being on their own in a cave and slaving over a hot typewriter and torturing themselves to prepare this, create this magnum opus, then I might think differently, but I don't take it that seriously. A lot of people ask me, have you ever written fiction? Would you ever write fiction? Absolutely not. You have to think far too much for that. And you have to spend, I don't mind spending time on my own to write a book, a month, 6 weeks or whatever. But I've seen what writing fiction can do to people, and I don't want any part of that at all. I don't take it that serious. I understand why people do. It's like I understand why people like Coldplay. I despise Coldplay. It's horrible, but I can't. But I understand why people like it. I understand why people write fiction. I could never ever do it.
I like that. You can keep your empty page and your blank page, and you can keep your Coldplay. Is what?
Yeah, you can keep your torture and your angst and all that. No. Sorry, life's too.
Similarly, I don't succumb to that sort of deep anxiety and angst that goes with being an actor. I think you've got to be good at the rest of your life, and you can do it in a happy way as well.
Yeah. It's only a job,
and it's only a book. Lovely quote.
Yeah,
wonderful. What advice might you proffer to a younger version of yourself, Mr. James Hogg?
I think just treat convention with suspicion. The whole sort of like, well, then you've got to do this. So you do well at your A-levels, then you're going to go to university, then you come out, and then you're going to go. I treat that with either contempt or suspicion. Not necessarily contempt, because then you're just being rebellious almost for the sake of it. But treat it all with suspicion, and don't be afraid to step out of it, regardless of how academically bright you are.
Yes.
You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a lawyer. You can be, and it sounds a bit cliche, but don't just do that because, well, my dad did it, or blah blah blah, so I'm going to do it. No, step outside. Step outside, son. Sounds like a Cilla Black song.
Let's get singing. And the joy of being an outlier is what I'm hearing there as well. Just outside looking in, being an acute observer, which is where a writer often fits.
I've always been a bit of a, and I don't mean outsider as in, but when I was in North Yorkshire, all my family worked with horses, horse racing. I don't know one end of a horse, so I was a bit of a, I had to leave that sort of thing. And then theatre as well. As much as I loved it, it wasn't my natural place. It wasn't somewhere I wanted to stay. Then sales, cricket, and I quite like that, because and this is probably the closest thing to a home outside my family.
Yes.
My family now that I've ever come to, being part of the. But again, I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm somebody who writes, but I'm not a writer.
Yes.
I just happen to be able. I left school at 15. So I'm completely uneducated. I've never passed an exam in my life. Yet I can write books. How the hell did that happen? I don't read books either very often. Everybody always assumes that I sit there and I have a big pile of books that I want to get through. Absolutely not. The last thing I want to do after I've been writing for 8 hours is go and read a fucking book. No chance. I can't think of anything. It's like a cook. I don't know. Lots of cooks where if you're a chef, you're in a kitchen. You come home. What are you going to do? You're going to cook a meal? Of course you're not.
Get somebody else to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same with me. So that's what I would say. I would say always treat convention with deep suspicion, definitely. And don't be afraid to stick two fingers up at it and do something else.
Just allowing a bit of silence there. And now this is Pass the Golden Baton, please, before a cheeky bit of Shakespeare. So I should have a comedy prop to hand, but it's down here. Hold the line, caller. Comedy prop coming up. Golden Baton. It's a new one. I'm going to unpackage it.
Yeah.
Pass the Golden Baton, please. Sorry, it should have been 10. So who in your network would you most like and enjoy passing the Golden Baton on to?
A friend of mine called Georgie Jameson. She is a presenter, radio presenter for BBC Radio Suffolk and Norfolk. And she's quite an inspirational character. She's a bit of a comedy nut like me, British comedy nut. She's one of the most interesting people I've ever known, and she's made it in radio, and I think being a woman in radio, I don't think has been the easiest place to be. Ask Annie Nightingale, for God's sake, who she'll tell you, has written books about it. But Georgie she's done very, very well for herself, and I found her story quite inspirational. She's a good egg, and she's a good talker as well. She'd be perfect for this.
Second name, Georgie?
Jameson.
So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to furnish me with a happy introduction. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt.
With the greatest of pleasure.
And now, thank you for that sincerely, inspired by Shakespeare and all the world's a stage. We've got 2 minutes before I give myself pain with it, but this being too long. So inspired by Shakespeare now and all the world's a stage, legacy. How, when all is said and done, Mr. James Hogg, would you most like to be remembered?
Couldn't give a toss. Give a toss. Don't care.
Thank you for the short, concise, punchy answer.
Yeah, as long as my kids remember me with some sort of affection, everything else couldn't give a monkey's. Doesn't matter.
Love that. Sincerely, I do. Where can we find out more about you on the old Hinterweb?
You can't really, because I'm a ghostwriter. The only thing I do that's sort of public are sort of posting other people's work on Twitter. So that's really
so just crank your Twitter handle.
I don't know. I genuinely don't.
You don't know. You don't know what your own Twitter path is.
No idea.
I follow you on Twitter, so look for
James A. Hogg. James
yes.
A. Hogg. Is it James A. Hogg? Is there a number after it?
2?
Don't know. There might be.
That's very mysterious. So we'll have to work to find you now then. Normally people know their own Twitter feed, so sorry that
there aren't many James Hoggs. I don't think there are many James Hoggs on Twitter.
But it is a source of joy, honestly. On the daily, I do sincerely enjoy it. And
thank you. Thank you very much.
You can follow me back too, obviously.
So okay. I do follow you. I follow you.
All right. Pardon me for breathing.
Of course I do.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as this has been your moment in the sunshine, Mr. James Hogg, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, nothing. But thank you very much indeed. I've enjoyed it.
So you've been listening to me, Chris Grimes, but most importantly, this has been ghostwriter Mr. James Hogg, and I wish you all the best for the imminent publishing of the book about Timothy West. What's it going to be called? It's called Prue and Me. Or is it Me and Prue? I can't. It's one of the two anyway. But, I've seen the cover. The cover's fantastic, and it is going to be. I'll tell you what. We've almost finished. This is really, really good. This is really good. I don't often say that, but this is good. So it's either called Me and Prue or Prue and Me. Same difference. Prue and Me. Yeah, we'll take your second answer. That's good. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed, and tune in next week for more stories of distinction and genius. Good night. You've been listening to the Good Listening To show here on UK Health Radio with me, Chris Grimes. Oh, it's my son.
If you've enjoyed the show, then please do tune in next week to listen to more stories from the clearing.
If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, then please do so. There's also a dedicated Facebook group for the show too. You can contact me about the programme, or if you'd be interested in experiencing some personal impact coaching with me, care of my Level Up Your Impact programme, that's chris@secondcurve.uk. On Twitter and Instagram, it's
@ThatChrisGrimes.
So until next time, from me, Chris Grimes, from UK Health Radio, and from Stan,
to your good health.
And goodbye. So, Mr. James Hogg, thank you very much indeed for passing on Georgie Jameson as your golden baton. Could I just get your immediate feedback? What was that like for you, being given a good listening to, if you had to come up with sort of a pithy testimonial of what that was? No, I really enjoyed it. I love the concept. When I listened to the message, the voice message that you said you were going to send and did, I like it. It's different. It's not too convoluted. It's not too complex. Sorry, it's not too complex, but it makes you think. And I think by the questions you ask, you get a good, you get a rounded view of said interviewee, and it works really, really well, and it's fun. So yeah, and you're if you don't mind me saying, you're a very, very good host. It's a joy, really is good fun. Sincerely, thank you for that wonderful, warm feedback.